Okay. Hello, friends, and welcome to Booked Up. I'm Michaela, and today we have a special episode because I am here with the author of Sign Here, Allie, A.E. Boss.
Hello.
I had at least one episode where I was kind of raving about Sign Here, and then we were just like chit-chatting, and I've like been in love with this book, and I figured why not have Allie as my first like author guest, as my first guest in general. So I'm very, very excited and I'm very nervous and I'm just ready to like get all this information because I have a list of questions that I
Amazing.
typed out. Okay, so the first one will just be the general, like for those who may not know who you are,
Yeah.
you just want to do a quick introduction on who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Allie, but my pen name is A.E. Boss, and I am the author of Sign Here. I'm an indie author. I am brand new, just published this book in July, so first book out, very exciting. Been a reader for quite some time, but finally put out a book after writing for about 100 years. So that's really just kind of like the very baseline author intro.
And then do you prefer to go by just A? Do you like people to know like that your first name is Allie and like where did AE Boss come from?
Yeah, absolutely. I usually like if I'm doing like book stuff, it's usually me going by A because like that's just what it is. But AE Boss came from my full name. So obviously my first name is Allie. My middle name is Elizabeth, so that's where I got the E from. And then my last name has Boss in it, but just spelled differently. So I was trying to pull a pen name out of somewhere and ended up with AE Boss because I'm also an academic and I'm probably going to be getting a doctorate. So I kind of want to just separate my real name and my pen name because, you know, one is a dark romance smut author and one would be getting a PhD.
Wow, what a perfect combo there.
No, literally. Can you imagine someone's like looking me up and they're like, these are two very different things?
Hey, I would see it as like credible. I'd be like, this person is valid. I
She's
trust
a real
them.
person. It's fine.
Exactly. And then what was your inspiration for Sign Here?
Yeah. It was kind of one of those things that sort of pieced itself together over time. So I'm someone who kind of has a lot of characters always sort of roaming around up here. Asher has been a character in my head for about 6 years now. And I've just kind of put her in different places. And I finally kind of found somewhere where she fit. And then I got back into reading last year and found the genre of why choose reverse harem. And I read Losers by Harley LaRue, and then I read a bunch of books by Lily Gold, and I was like, wait, I can publish that? I didn't know you could do that. And so then all of the guys kind of started to form, and I had always had kind of like just dark romance plot boiling in the back of my head, and eventually it just sort of like fell out on paper. And I was like, here we go. And it was a long process to actually like put it into words, but once I started writing, it sort of just fell forward. It was impressive that it finally came together after having Asher around for 6 years and trying to figure out where she should go.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that Asher has been around for so long and just that like that she's finally was placed in
Yeah.
the world of Sign Here. I couldn't imagine her anywhere else after reading Sign Here.
Oh yeah, she can't go anywhere now. She is very much stuck there for sure.
Oh yeah. And then so Sign Here has a lot of tropes and a lot of triggers.
Yes.
Um how did you stay sane while writing Sign Here? Cuz I know you put a blurb where you're like you can take a break, you can put the book down, like take care of your own mental health while going through this. How did you manage that while putting this from your thoughts onto paper and like not going crazy or anything?
It was hard. I'm going to be so for real about it because there's a lot there. And unfortunately, some of the things do come from personal experience, some of the trauma. So it was sometimes really difficult to put that on paper, but in a lot of ways it was cathartic because I was being able to turn these things into a way that I could write that was sort of me reclaiming a lot of it. Certainly did not go through as much as my characters did, let's be very clear. But there were times where I sort of had to like close the Google Doc, walk away, maybe go talk to my PA or talk to my friends and be like, hey, you know, what do you think is going on? Like, am I okay? Kind of thing. And also, I'm in therapy, and I talked about it in therapy. And my therapist, luckily, is also a romance reader. We found that out about each other. And so I could kind of talk through some of that. And there was a lot of, putting it down and walking away. I mean, it took me probably about a year and a half to write the book and get it, like, edited and everything. And having alpha readers and beta readers kind of going through it and being able to also be like, hey, maybe this part is a little bit too much. And I'd go through it and read it and think of it as a reader and be like, oh, yeah, no, that's a little, let's step that back kind of thing. So it was hard, but I did it.
Yeah. Were there ever a few times where you wrote something and you're like, who am I? Like,
Yes.
what little devil's on my shoulder to, like, come up with that? And I was, because there were a few times that I was reading and I was like, what the heck is going on through her mind right now? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, sometimes I don't really know where some of that stuff comes from. That I'm like, you write something out and you're like, am I good? Or like, especially like reading towards the end, like where it gets real traumatic before they all get rescued. I had to like sit back and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
But you just have to kind of like, there were times I just sort of had to separate like myself from it and just look at it as an author and not as like me as a person to be like, no, this is something people will read. It's okay to be a little bit insane.
Yeah. No. Yeah, there are definitely a few times where I was going through it and I was like, oh my gosh, how did this person, this being, sit down and just be like, like, let's have him do this and let's have this happen. Like, perfect.
I actually, when I first posted my face on my author account, somebody who was, I think, alpha reading for me swiped up on it and she was like, this is not what I expected you to look like. You look so sweet and so innocent. And I'm like, yeah, that's where thoughts come from.
Yeah, you definitely give the vibe of just like bubbly and lighthearted and like let's like do a silly cute little romance, but
And then I
no,
pulled
once
this out of
you
nowhere.
yeah, and it's like here are all the triggers. Scroll, scroll, scroll. And I was like,
My,
oh
my
my.
PA refers to it as my shopping list when she looks at my trigger warning list.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like, and like I've never read a dark romance before, really, like nothing super dark. I read
Welcome.
Praise and I think Eyes on Me is the second one.
Yeah.
So I read those two, and those were like the spiciest books I've ever read. And then yeah,
Praise is spicy.
it
Praise got,
is.
I don't give books 5 out of 5 spice a lot. But Praise did something for me. That
Oh
was
yeah,
oh my god, so good.
Praise would definitely be something I would reread just so
Oh,
I can
same.
like feel something. Cause I remember when I was reading, I was like, whoo, like I gotta go
You're
take
like
some private time right
you're
now.
like, why do I like it so much?
Yeah, that one I didn't know what to expect going into it. The same with Sign Here, but yeah, Praise was something. But
That
now
is
that seems like that's no big deal after reading this one. I'm like, okay,
I had someone
when's the
say
next?
that it wasn't like they said it wasn't dark enough, and I was like, "Are you okay? Like, what are you
What?
reading?" Yeah, like in a Goodreads
Pe-
review, they were like, "It's not dark enough," and I was like,
like, are you okay? Do you
"I
need
was
to go
like,
talk to
I
someone?
was no, literally, I was like, do you need help?"
Okay. So there were what, 5 characters in Sign
Yeah,
Here?
our 5 main characters.
How did you keep up and like keep the characters in order and not get confused? Because there were times where I was reading it and I would have to like skim back a little bit to be like, who am I reading through? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's this person. And I'll like keep going. Like especially the guys, I would sometimes mix up pretty easily.
Oh yeah.
In the beginning. Towards like the middle and the end, I was like, oh, that's this person. Oh, that's this
Yeah.
person. But as a writer, how did you not get confused on who was who and what they were doing? And
It's so hard. I don't think I'll ever write this many POVs again. Because it's so hard to keep, like, obviously Asher's her own thing. Like, she's easy to keep separate. But keeping all four guys separate was really hard sometimes, especially because with how long they've all, like, in this universe known each other, you start to pick up attributes of people you've known for a long time. So it's when I was thinking about that as I'm writing it, I was like, oh, these guys are becoming really similar. So I kind of had to go into each of them and be like, what is the one really unique thing I can sort of pull from each of them? So, like, Dan, I kind of pulled a little bit more of the, like, the grumpy out of him. And I was like, this is who this man is. Like, he is a little more on the stoic side. And for Carson, I was like, this man, like, I had to pull each of these things out and be like, this is your unique thing. And that is how I will figure out who you are. And I actually, when I was writing, each of the chapter names, I would highlight them a different color for each person. I'd highlight them their own favorite color so that I was sort of in that mindset while I was writing it. Asher was the easiest, though. Her chapters flew through them. But there are sometimes, like, writing, oh my god, especially writing Andrew sometimes, because he's a little too similar to me in a lot of ways. I was like, oh no, somehow I got into the book.
oh yeah, there were multiple points. I even messaged you on a few of them. I was like, oh, there you are. Oh, yep, there
Yep.
is the Allie that I know.
I had friends texting me every time they read it. They were like, get out of the book. And I was like, I'm sorry.
And get off this page.
It was like somebody in chapter 4 when I put in Fuck It We Ball. They were like,
I definitely text you
you
about
texted
that
me about
one.
that. I had so many
Yes.
people text me. They were like, you're joking. I was like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, there were a few points too that I didn't even message you, but I'd read it and I'd be like, "Yep, Allie wrote this. Oh, yep, there she is." Like,
Down
hi.
there.
And then, do you have a favorite character?
Oh, it's hard. Because, like, Asher is my favorite because, like, me and Brie, my brand manager, we refer to her and Nate as our baby girls because they are both just so baby girl. Um, but I think Dan is my favorite. He was the most fun for me to develop, and he's still the most fun for me to develop as I've been working on, like, the novella and everything. His emotions are so deep and in depth, especially compared to the other guys who have, like, Dan hasn't really had a lot of, like, trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
so developing him has been really interesting because usually when I create a character, there's some sort of, like, thing that's theirs that they're, like, going through. And Dan doesn't really have one of those. So having to force him to develop anyway has made him kind of my favorite because I've been able to give him so much. And I fear people I fear people notice that because I give him, like, these deeper thoughts. But that's kind of what differentiates his voice too, is giving him some of that, like, kind of deep gripping, like, oh, you can see my brain literally changing in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that Dan is probably my favorite as well, just because he did have such a bigger bad boy attitude
Yes.
compared to the rest, and he was very just like standoffish and like
Yeah.
always in the not in the background, but he just was the puppet master, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't want to say he was the ruler of everyone, but he was
But
the
he kind of
leader.
is.
Yeah. No,
He's
he
always
was
like,
definitely.
he's my version of Alex Volkov, because he's just
Mm,
always, like, lurking. Like, he's always there.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, he always knows what's happening.
he always knows what's going on. And that was part of why I liked at the, like, really in that third act, how he kind of, like, fell apart. And that was part of why I wrote him that way. I was like, just because they're always, like, on the ball and doing their thing doesn't mean that they can't fall apart sometimes. That's kind of why I had Andrew step up and become that person who can sort of handle it. Because I wanted to show that, like, not just, this is not what I'm trying to say. I show that you, even if you're the strongest, you can still have those moments where you're literally falling apart.
Yeah, I definitely think at that point is when I realized that he was a real person and
Yeah.
like he does have feelings and he does feel deeply about things because throughout the rest of the book he's pretty standoffish, I guess, and just cold and he has this front put on. But it
Yeah,
was at that point where I was like, oh, like he does have deeper emotions than just like putting up a wall and like that's it.
exactly.
Um, and so then you did you self-publish?
Yes, I did. I published
How
through Amazon through KDP.
how did you go about with like getting the copies of your books and
So you can actually you order them right from Amazon, which is kind of cool. And they give you like a discount, like you just kind of pay for like the print publish part. Um, it's hard to go through self-publishing because you're kind of doing it all on your own. Like you can read and talk to other people as much as you want, but you have to kind of handle it yourself, which makes it harder because you're kind of going through these motions. You have to figure out how to price your own book. Like how do you put a value on all this thing that you've spent so much time on kind of thing. But
yeah.
yeah, I just ordered. I get my physical copies right from Amazon. I would have liked to go through a publishing house if I could have, but I looked at the genre of my book and I was kind of realistic and I was like, this is something that would be hard to get picked up. So
Yeah.
I said, you know what, we're gonna self-publish and I'm gonna stay that way probably for a while, because then I can kind of control what I want to do with it, and that's how I'm able to sell them on my website and be able to sign them and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely putting a price on your own work is hard because you're like, oh, this
Weird.
is like easy for me. This is just something I like to do. So why
Exactly.
am I gonna charge you an arm and a leg for a copy of it or for my work? So I understand that
Yeah.
side of things where it's like I just this is fun. This is fun work. Just read it, please.
Yeah. Please just enjoy it.
Yeah. And then what has life been like since releasing Sign Here in like the bookish realm?
It's been definitely different because I'm still like I'm an adult, I'm 25, I have a full-time job and I work and I obviously do other things and I'm a chronically ill person, so I'm a very busy person. And so adding this on top of it has been a very different experience because suddenly I feel like I'm leading a double life because I feel like I'm moonlighting as an author because I am, helping manage a team and I am doing things like this, interviewing on a podcast and applying to sign at book conventions and being this kind of strong, like, other lifed person. And, I get to talk to readers a lot on, Instagram and wherever and get to hear what they have to say. And it's been like a confidence boost at the same time as it's been like the most anxiety I've ever had in my life because this thing that's so important to me is, exposed. It's kind of like exposing a nerve, honestly. Like everything that touches it, you just get so nervous. Or like I get an Instagram DM and like my heart stops because I have no idea what I'm about to see. Or like when Brie and Mara listen to this, they're gonna yell at me. But whenever I go check Goodreads, they're my Goodreads police. If I tell them I read a review, I get yelled at.
Oh,
Um,
I mean,
but I sometimes you can't help it. But sometimes you open Goodreads and you're like, oh, what am I gonna find today? Like the one day I found that 1-star review, and
mm,
I was like, great, this is gonna ruin my life for the next week. Even
yeah,
though it's like
it's
one-star review out of like over 100 5-star reviews, and I'm like, but they hurt my feelings.
yeah, it's so hard to look past the bad reviews of things
Yeah,
because it's like this is your baby. This is
yeah,
you exposing
it's
yourself
literally my child.
real and raw. Yeah. So it's like, please be nice. Even if you don't like it, please say
Literally.
you like it.
No, literally, just
But
look me in the eye and tell me you loved it. Like that's all
yeah,
I'm asking you to do.
yeah. Um, and so you mentioned a novella earlier. How much are you willing to talk about that?
Oh, I'll talk about it. I officially announced it yesterday, so more than happy to talk about it. It has been
Yay!
so much fun to work on. I've loved every second of it, truly.
And it's called A Contract Christmas.
Yes, a contract Christmas, and then kind of underneath, I did the assign here story so people knew what they were getting into.
And then how is that going to be different from Sign Here itself?
Yeah, so it takes place. So, like, the epilogue of sign here is like a year later. It's their, I know math, 2-year anniversary. So it takes place like the December after that. So sort of following along there. And you actually, believe it or not, I found a way to give more character development. But it sort of follows. So there's this. I can give this away. So the way that the guys have always worked their holidays is it's the one time a year they actually spend kind of apart, and they go and they spend time with their individual families, because like, it's hard to pick up like a group of 4 people and move them around like to different states and things like that, because like Andrew's from Illinois, Carson's from Maine, Nathan's from, I know this, North Carolina, and then Dan's from New York. And so, it's hard to like move as a unit. And the thing is, now that everyone knows Asher, all their families, everyone wants to spend time with her, and she's like, great. So they have to sort of like, they all split up, but then Asher jumps around throughout the book, and like, so she starts at one place and moves around. So you get some time one-on-one with each of the guys and her, and then everybody sort of comes together at the end. And the guys have always like done their thing, and then they always spend New Year's together. And so it's sort of following along with that. So you get some time with everybody, and you get to meet everyone's families, which has been really fun. But I had to like individually name all of these children that everyone's families have, and that has been the hardest part, straight up.
Yeah, I feel like figuring out names is hard too. Like,
It's so hard.
there's a million and one names out there, and you're like, okay, is this one too basic? Does this one
Yeah.
fit who the person
Well, and
is? Like, does this fit the family?
I don't do the thing that a lot of authors have been doing and give people like really unique names, because I kind of hate it. Because I don't like, I can't take a book seriously if someone has like the world's dumbest name. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it's like
It
looking
is.
at a list of like current kindergartners, and you're like, oh no, where did your
Yeah.
name come from?
Yeah. Um, yeah, whenever there's a weird name, it kind of distracts from the book, where if they have more basic names, then it's like, oh yeah, like it's just this person. Like
Yeah,
I'll
well,
remember everyone from Sign Here because they're all normal names, and I can talk about
exactly.
them like they're a friend.
The most unique one is Asher, and it's not even unique.
Yeah, like that's just a cool like punk rock name.
Exactly.
I loved it. I was jealous of Asher throughout the book. I was like,
I
oh, she's so
I had loved
cool.
that
And then
name
I
for
like,
so long. And at first I was like, maybe I'll use this for the name of a child, and then I was like, no, this is my
mm,
girl.
yeah, no, it was a perfect name. I couldn't.
Thank you.
There was just like nothing else you could do because if you could go like a little more like do like a boy name for a girl,
Yeah. I
which
considered
I
it, but then I
guess
was like, no.
yeah, and then you couldn't do anything sweet that was like Melanie because it
No, that's
wouldn't
not my
fit.
girl.
No, it would not fit
That
who she
girl's
is
a
at all.
small demon. Like, she...
And then I remember on Instagram you also posted about doing a cowboy romance.
Yes.
Is that still in the works?
It absolutely is. So that one is intended. This is the first time actually really talking about it. So congratulations, you're getting kind of the inside details
Thanks.
of it. But that one is ideally, if it goes well, it's going to be a series of interconnected standalones. And it's going to follow this family that I've named. Their last name is Marin. And the first book is about Isla, who is one of the Marin kids, and each book is gonna follow one of them, and it's been fun to work on. It's been hard because going from really dark romance to like it's a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, to going to like
I love a
that.
grumpy
I
sunshine.
know, and there's still some like darker elements to it, just because like every book I feel like kind of needs it. Because you have to have like somebody's got to have trauma, right? That's how books work.
Hmm.
So there's some darker elements to like the trauma that each character goes through, but it's definitely a change of pace, which is why I've been working on it concurrently with the novella, because I was like, I need like my brain can't piece this out.
Yeah, yeah. Sign here is pretty dark.
Yeah,
I was curious on
more than a little.
yeah, but I was just curious on this next cowboy romance. Is the spice level gonna be just as high as,
I
or
want
will it
it
be
to
like
be.
one or two notches down?
It might be a notch down. I want it to be spicy. Because the other trope in there is fake dating. Um, so I want it to be spicy. But my thing is like I'm very bad at I can't do a slow burn. I've discovered I cannot write a slow burn. Um so it'll probably, move fairly quickly, partly so I can get to the spice because I feel like that gives characters a really deep connection is being able to like actually, be together. But I don't think the first book is going to be as spicy as Sign Here, but I think after that it might get all spicier. I hope anyway. Got to figure out how to get everything in there.
Yeah. Do you have an expected like release time frame for that one, or are you not putting any pressure on it and just like when it's done, you'll put it out?
I would love to have it out by like late spring, early summer. But I've been told I'm not allowed to put a timeline on it by everyone on my team.
I mean, that's understandable because you don't want to like put pressure on and then force
Exactly.
something bad out.
Exactly. And that
But
was part of like Sign Here, we were down to the wire. Because
mhm.
I put out a release date probably sooner than I should have. Because I had this very optimistic writing schedule. And then that didn't happen. Partly because, my life with chronic illness, nothing ever goes the way I want it to. But we were down to the wire. I mean, I was sending and a lot of people do this as a normal, but for me it wasn't normal. I was like giving my alpha readers like they were running the chapters with me. Like I would finish one and be like, okay, go read it. Then I'd finish it and be like, okay, go read it. And that's not normally who I am. Normally I give them the complete product because that just makes more sense to me. I'd rather them go through it all at once than like end up getting kind of lost, which is what I'm doing with the novella. And I keep warning them. I'm like, it's coming soon. I hate to tell you. It's like 85% done, which is the number I keep giving them. And they're like, you keep saying 85%. It's been 2 weeks and I know you're writing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Look, there's a reason I have a journalism degree. I'm bad at math.
Valid, same.
Right?
Are you gonna start? Do you have the characters like figured out for this cowboy romance? Like, are you gonna
Do.
start posting about them and like putting
Once
little
the novella's
snippets?
out, I think we'll probably start teasing a little bit. Um, because and this is the great thing about having Brie on my team is I give her a concept and she just runs with it, which has been the most amazing thing about adding her to my team. Um, but she has been just absolutely blitzing through the aesthetic for these books. And I've named all of the siblings have names, all the characters that it'll follow. I haven't named all the significant others yet. But for the first book, it is Isla and Matthew are my character names. And I love them dearly. I also hate them a little bit, but that's just how my writing works. Is I really start to hate my characters. I can tell you at one point, I have a whiteboard over to the side that I call my chaos whiteboard because it's just where I write. It's like where I word vomit. So literally, I'm looking at it right now, and it's all stuff for this book. And I just see the words like oat milk creamer, and I know what that means, but no one else does.
Oh, yeah, like
But
random.
But at one point, I literally it just had Dan's name with like a big X over it because that's how I was feeling about him at the time. And I sent it to
Like
my
valid.
my PA, and she was like, "How you doing, bud?" I was like, "I'm
You're
not
like
good."
great.
I was like, I literally sent her a picture of the board, and I was like, "This is where we're at." And she goes, "Oh no."
Uh, She's like, okay, valid. I
She's like,
understand.
she's like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "What did he do?" And I went, "He's not doing what I want him to do." She went, "You created him," and I went, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah, that's the funny part because you can be creating these characters and be like, oh, like they're doing this and I don't want them to do that and whatever. And it's like, okay, but
Literally.
it's also my brain. Like I can
No, literally.
make
I
them
can make them
flip.
do whatever I want, but they're just like it's like they're real people in my head.
Yeah, it's like let me be dramatic and let me hate them for a little bit.
Like I had to take a break from this cowboy romance situation because I was so mad at the characters because I was trying to do a slow burn. I can't do it, and I've admitted that to myself now. But I'm like trying to do this slow burn, and I had to take a break. And then I went to Montana, and I was considering that for my setting. And I went to Montana, and I was looking around, and I was like, okay, we can get back into this now. And now I have gotten back into it. I actually wrote quite a bit yesterday, which was nice.
Woohoo. You said to
Because
get into
it's
that yeehaw mindset.
I'm trying to get in that yeehaw mindset. It's so hard though when you have Sign Here running in your brain like at all times.
Oh yeah, when that's like your main thing to
Oh
currently promote, it's like
yeah,
hard to shift out of that because that's what people are like still seeing and still know
yeah.
you for, and then it's
Well, and
like,
that's like the novella too. Is it's all sitting right there, and then I have a whole bunch of like other things that I want to write floating around in my brain, and everyone's like, "Can you pick one project?" I'm like, "No, I have ADHD."
oh yeah, that's so valid. That's me, but with all of my hobbies, I have way too many, and it
Oh, same.
simply is overwhelming.
Oh, same. It's just I have like all my friendship bracelet stuff out there. Like that's become a hobby. I was crocheting for a while. Totally gave up on that.
Oh yeah, I've
Um,
got crocheting behind me
oh
on a card. I've got stuff for that. I've got my books. I've
oh
got
yeah.
the podcast I'm doing now. I have video games I like to play.
No.
There's so many where I'm just like, I'm just gonna lay in bed and do none of it.
No, but then you just like scroll on TikTok and you're like, great, I'm so good at my hobbies.
Yeah, like wow, I'm gonna really progress in all of this by
Well,
laying in bed for 5 hours on my phone.
well, and then I turned writing into a job, and I was like, oops, that wasn't what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, now you're like, well, now I kind of have to do this one.
I'm like, oh no, people want more. Like I have people message me and they're like, what's your next thing? And I'm like, oh god. I'm like, don't ask.
Um, TTYL, BRB,
Bye.
do not disturb.
Please don't ask. Or like I have a Discord server for all of my teams, and people will ask me questions in there, and I'm like,
Like, you know as much as I do.
that's. Then they'll be like, oh, you maybe like, are you working on this? I went, no, maybe I should.
Yeah. Or people start guessing what's gonna happen. You're like, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I
No,
will use
that happened to me
that.
actually. People were like, ooh, I think I know what's coming, and I went, what do you think is coming?
Yeah.
Like,
And you're
please
like,
tell
yeah,
me.
gonna run with that.
Let me get out my notebook. What do you think is coming, and then maybe we'll roll with that.
Like, sir, can you repeat that? Like,
Literally.
speak into the microphone.
It was like I got notes at the very beginning of editing. People were like, Dan is too mean. And I was like, so what do you think he should sound like then? Because I didn't think he was like mean at all. I just thought he was like kind of grumpy. They're like, he's so mean. And I was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're like, write that down, write that down.
Oh, literally. I wasn't allowed in the alpha editing doc because we knew my feelings would get hurt. So
I mean,
anything.
okay, valid. That's valid.
Because and then anything that was important, because I write in my own document and then I give other people like a different one because that way like everything is sort of for me. Actually, my writing process is I write each individual chapter in its own document and then I paste it into the main doc because then if I want to make edits to the chapter, I can do it without screwing up any of my own formatting.
Hmm.
So I write in. I feel so bad for my PA, who is also my editor, because I have the most insane document organization system, and I don't know how she hasn't ended me yet, because things are just everywhere.
Okay, but the writing in your own doc is valid because I also graduated with a journalism degree. I hate when people read my work before it's done, like while
Yep,
I'm working on it in the moment. I'm like,
yep.
because they'll like start critiquing it. I'm like, I'm not done. Like,
No, literally,
I'm
it's not
not done
finished.
with this.
Go
Like,
away.
like the draft that you are getting is not complete. This is
No,
my first draft. You'll get like
literally.
the third draft. So I just hate when people look at my work before
Oh
it's
yeah. When
done or
people are like
before it's
working in the Google Doc and I'm working, I'm like, get off your computer, go shut it down, go somewhere else.
yeah, no. So that is valid. That would be something I would do cuz I'm like,
Yeah.
don't watch me work. Like
No,
I'm going
this
to
is my
write
safe
some
space.
yeah, I'm going to write some crazy things, delete it, and then I'm going to get back into writing and then
No, literally.
I'll show you when it's done.
There was a note in my one document that it was like a comment on the Google Doc that I left that literally said like, "Come back here and fix this, you idiot." And my PA was like, "Allie, are you good?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "What do you think needs fixed?" And I was like, "I don't know, something." She was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
poor
like
Jamie."
it's just not
I put that
right.
one through the ringer. My god.
Yeah. No, valid though. That's all valid feelings. Those are all feelings that I feel when I like write my silly little news articles or even a social media post. I'm like, don't
I'm like,
look at it.
but
just let me draft it up and I will email it to you when it's done, and then you can tear it apart. But do not come over and be like, hey, like, you should review this and tell me right to my face that the wording is wrong and this is bad and I should add this, because I will cry in my office.
Literally, like, oh, you want to watch me cry? Sure.
Oh, you're only just giving me, like, constructive criticism and being nice about it, but I took it as you hate me and you hate my work and I'm awful at this and I should not have graduated because I'm not ready yet. So I'm gonna go cry my eyes out for the night.
This is why we're the same person.
Literally the same feelings about everything.
Literally.
Overthinking everything. I love to be dramatic.
It's fun. It's fun to be dramatic.
Yeah. Logan sometimes doesn't think it's fun.
No, Rob doesn't think it's fun either. But sometimes Rob's dramatic. So.
Oh, yeah. Same with Logan. Sometimes he's just like, is freaking out about nothing. And I'm like, okay.
Or like, Rob will like put his head on my shoulder and I'm like, your chin is hurting me. He goes, oh, so you hate me? I'm like, get out.
I love doing that though, because
it's really fun.
I'll ask Logan to like fill my water up for me or do something so simple. He's like, really? I'm like, is it because you hate me? Is it because I'm ugly?
Is it because I'm the worst person you know?
Or I'll be like, can we like snuggle tonight? And he's like, no, it's really hot in here. I'm like, fine, you can just say you hate me right to my face then. And I turn the other way and he's like, where did that come from?
And you're like, I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know, I'm just gonna face the other way now.
I'm just gonna be mad about it.
It's usually within 2 seconds I roll back over.
No, literally.
He's like, are you done? I'm like, no, it's just not comfortable that way.
That's so relatable.
Yeah, I do that a lot compared to him.
Oh, yeah.
But he puts up with it. It's the little things too, where I'll be like, can we like watch a movie together tonight? And he hates watching movies with me in bed because I fall asleep within 5 minutes. And so he's always like, no, you fall asleep in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie and I'm stuck watching it. I'm like, okay. Like, just tell me to move out then. Like, you hate me, we're breaking up.
Tell me to move out, I'll take the dogs, I'm gone.
And I'll like say something like that and he's like, okay, I get the whole bed then. Like, doesn't even fight for it. He's just like, woohoo, I get the whole bed to myself then. I'm like, okay, rude. I'm staying now.
Or like Rob will be leaving to like go work night shift and I'll be like, okay, bye, I love you. And he's like, you're gonna miss me? I'm like, yeah, but I'm not gonna miss you in bed.
Sometimes having the bed to yourself is so nice. Because yeah, now Logan will be going to night shift soon.
Oh, yeah.
And that's gonna be like one nice thing because we only have a queen size bed and I sleep in the middle of it. Like, I start on my side. He's always like, you slept in the middle of the bed the entire night and I didn't sleep good. And I'm like, well, I'm sleeping. Just push me back over.
No,
like, I tried.
I'm not gonna go anywhere. Like,
yeah, just like shove me over a little bit and it'll be fine. He's a little dramatic. He's always like, you snore and you talk in your sleep and you drool. And I'm like, sleeping good, I guess.
Oh, well, yeah, Rob's a snorer, but I'm a kicker. I literally got diagnosed with restless leg syndrome, and so he has woken up with bruises before because I've kicked him so hard.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
See, my dad has the restless leg syndrome, but it's more so he always just has to be up walking around doing stuff. Like, he can't sit down to watch a show. He's always like, I gotta go to the garage. I gotta go do this. I gotta go do that. And I'm like, is that restless leg or is that just your ADHD?
No, literally.
Which one is it, Dad?
Pick one.
Pick a struggle.
I say that to my characters all the time. They'll be like going through, I'm like, pick a struggle, man.
Yeah.
Like when I was writing like the Asher and Nate like big like fight scene, Nate was like going through something like pick a struggle, and then I was like, wait, I can pick a struggle.
There's been other books I've read, not necessarily Sign Here, but there's other books where characters are like, oh, this and oh, that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bruh, like double whammy. Pick a struggle. Which one is it?
That was me reading Happy Place for real, though. I was like, pick one, man.
Yes, me too. Happy Place made me so frustrated because it was just like, there were so many ways.
You could have fixed that with 5 conversations, and we wouldn't have had a book.
Yep.
And I would have been okay with that.
Yeah. So I after Happy Place, I realized I'm not a fan of like miscommunication
I
or
hate
anything like that because
miscommunication.
it literally just pissed me off the entire book. I was just like, come on, like could
Literally.
be solved in a page and
Literally.
done.
That was why I like kind of made a half joke of a miscommunication trope. Like at the end when Dan's like, we don't want to renew the contract, and they're like, you can't say that. That was
Yeah.
like I
I
was like,
read that and
I
I was like,
hate it. That was the goal. Was that momentary like
yeah, I was like, oh, what? And I kept
and
reading.
then
I was
they
like,
were
oh,
like, no. And Dan was like, what did I do wrong?
yeah,
Like he's like, this makes perfect sense in my head. Why are you guys mad?
yeah. And then the last question I have
Okay.
is there anything that you want to say for those who are writing their first books or who are dreaming to become an author in the near future? Like any tips, any advice, just
Yeah,
anything really for those
absolutely.
who could be listening right now.
So my biggest thing is like, especially if you're just an aspiring writer, is it doesn't matter what you're writing as long as you're writing. Like, I started writing with fan fiction. I started writing with self-insert Harry Potter. I hate J.K. Rowling fan fiction. Like that was where I started writing. It does not matter. You can write a short story and that counts as writing. Like, don't think that you have to sit down and write a whole book the first thing that you do. For people who are working on their first book, it is okay to stop sometimes. Like, you don't have to just stress yourself out and put yourself through all this anxiety. Like, it is more than okay to, like, stop, take a break. I took a 3 month break from Sign Here. I had to. I was so burnt out from writing that I was like, okay, we're going to step back. If I want to write a little bit, I can, but we're going to take a break. And just don't be afraid to do that for yourself because you need to take care of you. You are way more important than your work. And I am definitely a hypocrite because there are nights, and Mick, you know this, I stay up all night writing, and then somebody wakes up at 5 a.m. to like go to work, and they text in the group chat, and like, hey, how are you? And they're like, go to bed.
Like, are you up this early because you're going to
Like,
work
are you
or
up
have you not
early
gone
or
to
did you
sleep?
never go to bed? Like, but then people who are like really in those final stages, don't be afraid to talk about yourself. I was so nervous to like promote because I was like, oh, no one's gonna read it, everyone's gonna hate it. And I still get in that mindset because I'm a writer. Like, that's just what we do. But don't be afraid to like put yourself out there. I've gotten to the point where I'm shamelessly self promoting. Like, I'm in all the like Facebook groups for people who want book recommendations. Anytime someone's like, I want a dark romance, I'm like, hey, have you heard of Sign Here by A.E. Boss? I'm A.E. Boss. Here's a book. Like,
You see
I
this face?
this
This
is
is she.
this is me. Hello. But I get to the point now where I'm like, I will shamelessly self promote anywhere at this point. Like it's just something you have to do for yourself. And don't feel like you have to go trad pub. Because it's so hard to go trad pub, and then they try and put you on a writing schedule, and that's hard. But also get a good team around you. Like, have a really good editor. I'm also an editor, so I know the really important parts of that because it's exhausting, but get yourself a good editor, get yourself a good PA. Don't be afraid to pay for that stuff. There are people who will do it for free. I am lucky enough that I work on reciprocal work with some of my friends where my PA, I will be hers and I will also be her editor because that's what she did for me. So, reciprocal work is great. Don't be afraid to pay for stuff if you have the finances. Also, don't feel like you have to pay for a cover. You can make your own. A lot of us make them on Canva. Mine was made on Canva by a couple of my friends. Like, none of this has to be super expensive. None of this has to be insane. It's okay to be an indie author. And don't be me and put yourself in a little bit of debt to publish your book.
What?
Yeah, I got a little bit of credit card debt just because like you don't realize how expensive things are until you're like really doing it and you're like, oh, like my first order of books cost me like $500.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
it was
guess I
a
never
lot.
thought about that side.
Yeah, it's expensive to be a self-published author. And then I was sending out all the like bookmarks and stickers and stuff like that, and that stuff really added up. So like keep track of all of that stuff. And I know I've given a lot of very random bits of advice, but it's the things that I've learned over the past couple of months that really like kind of had an impact on me that I don't want anyone else to hit the pitfalls that I hit, because it's hard
Yeah.
and it's stressful and it makes you like want to not work on your stuff because you just get so tired. But just remember that like this is what you love to do. And also, there are times, and this is going to sound so mean, but not everyone needs to be a writer. Reading can just be a hobby. Writing can just be a
Mm-hmm.
hobby. Like you don't have to put your work out there, because I've noticed like especially in the advent of like Bookstagram and things like that, people feel like they like need to publish their book and that kind of thing. It's okay if you don't. It's okay if writing just stays for you and you alone. That is okay.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like a lot of people feel
I
pressured.
Yeah, I've definitely was like, writing could be fun. And then I'm like, I'm not that great at writing. So if I do, it'd just be for like myself and like, hee hee, look at this little 20-page story I made. Like, I I was definitely one of the people who were like, oh, like, this would be fun. And I think because like Haley Pham and all of like the big booktubers and the
Yeah.
big people who aren't writers, they're like, I want to write a story. And then everyone's like, I want to write a story. So then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that would be super cool. And I think a lot of people don't go in it with the right mindset. They go in it for like the fame and they go on the tours and they get their name out there and they have the
Yeah.
publicity. And it's like, okay, are you doing it for that or are you doing it because you genuinely enjoy writing and being creative and love reading books? So like
Yeah.
there's a fine line that people ride and you can definitely tell when it's for the fame and for the
Yes.
people being like, "Oh, it's so good, and you're gonna do so great," and like, what's that called? Like the appraisal, like the praise from
Yeah. Like
people
it's the
and all the
praise and it's
attention.
the, but like if that's what you're doing it for, you are gonna burn out and your work
Hmm.
is going to suffer. Like I
Yeah,
specifically tell the people that I work with, I'm like, if I'm editing for you, I'm not going to give you lip service. I'm not going to be sweet. Like I'm not going to be inflating your ego unless it's the best thing I've ever read, which frankly is unlikely because there's, you know, everyone's work needs improvement, even people who have published. Like there,
hmm,
everybody's work needs improvement. You know, I'm not going to give you a glowing review. I'm going to give you what you need to hear, and I want the same as an author. You know, some people might need a little more cushion in the words that they hear, which is fine. But like you can't go into it with this fame mindset because otherwise you're not going to have fun. It's not fun.
yeah, and you can't really go into that with a lot of things. Like even with
Facts.
this podcast, like I can't be in this thinking I want to be super popular and I'm gonna do this full time. Like that would
Yeah.
be fun. That would be a
Oh
dream.
yeah. It'd be
But I
amazing.
also have to remember I'm doing this because I enjoy creating video
Yeah.
content and audio content, and
Yeah.
it's something just easy to me personally. And I look
Yeah.
forward to doing this. So I always have to remind myself too of that, where I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
even though some people, because that was another thing I was talking to you about, how some Bookstagram accounts grow to like 5, 10, 20,000
Yup.
followers within the first few months. I'm like,
Yup.
how? And when I see like my Bookstagram growing slow, I've had it for almost 2 years, and I'm
Yeah.
only at 800 compared to a lot of people. I'm small still,
Yeah.
but it's also 800 people who wanted to follow me.
Yeah.
And with the book podcast,
Yeah.
some people start at the same time and they're already at 600 followers, and I
Yeah.
just broke 100. But I'd rather have smaller growth and have a
Yeah.
genuine community of who
Yeah.
enjoys me, enjoys my content, will continuously watch and listen and interact
Yeah.
compared to a
Absolutely.
big boom and it's like irrelevant within 6 months.
Exactly. Like I'll see people who have like over 10,000 followers, and I know the Instagram algorithm is a pain in the butt, but like they get 60 likes on a post. I'm like, did you buy followers?
Yeah, and there's so many like different following trains, and like you gotta follow these 20 people and share this and comment
I
7 friends, and
hate those.
yeah, it's like
I almost got wrapped up into them when I got on Bookstagram, and then I was like, no, it's not worth it.
yep. I got wrapped up after about a year on Bookstagram, and I was like, I'm not growing anymore. But I also was like, I stopped posting for a few months because I was in
Yeah.
school, and like I
Yeah.
stopped reading for a little bit because I was just busy, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not as consistent. I'm not doing this to be popular on
Right.
Bookstagram. I'm doing it so I can post my cute pictures and I have another platform to be creative on. Like
Exactly.
that's my whole thing is I want places to be creative and to be able to use that side of my brain.
Yeah, Bookstagram has definitely become a place for me to be like very creative and try and like force myself out of my comfort zone a little bit because I've never just been that person that really like puts themselves out there, but I realize that like I'm good at what I do and I have to admit that to myself. Like, I have words that matter. I take good pictures. I do these things and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the thing, and which is the most millennial thing I've ever said. Um, but, I work hard at what I do and I do it not because I want to gain followers, but because I want to force myself to continue to be creative. Because, you graduate college and it's like, I'm not using my brain anymore.
Yeah, like I took film classes in college, so I made 3 films. My first one was not great. She will remain in the back closet with dust on her. Like no one will ever see that. And then I made 2 documentaries, which were great. And I realized I loved telling stories. I loved creating. Okay, so I still do kind of have a YouTube channel where I'd vlog on. I hit 1,000 subscribers on there, and
Ooh,
I made stupid videos and just vlogged my days.
I love
But
that.
I think after taking these film classes and telling stories that actually mattered,
Yeah.
made it hard to go back to vlogging. So I'm like, why? These are dumb. I'm not telling a story. I don't have
Yeah,
a
it feels so
purpose.
unserious.
Yeah. And so with the podcast, I'm like, okay, now I have like a niche that I enjoy and I can actually talk about books and like talk about the controversies
Close enough.
and the drama, and I can talk to people like you and like get your story out,
Yeah.
and this is what I'm enjoying to do. And there have been lulls already with the podcast where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. This is like, I'm dumb. This was so pointless. Why am I doing this?
And that's when you text me and then I yell at you.
Yeah, that's when I'm like, I don't know if I should do this. I'm not good enough. My life is boring. No one wants to listen to me talk.
Me publishing a book, I was like, no one wants to listen to me talk.
Okay, I have always said that I'm so boring and I have a boring life. And I've had multiple friends be like, you do not live a boring life.
You
You
do
have one of
not.
the most exciting lives and you are always doing stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but like it's my life and like this is
Yeah.
normal. So I feel like it's boring. And they're like, it
Yeah,
is
because you're
not
in the
boring.
same in and out every day.
Yeah. And like I don't want to say I have crazy stuff happening all the time, but I
Yeah.
feel like I always have a story of
You
what
always have something
happened.
going on.
And I'm just like, it's just my life. And people are like, your life is not boring. Start vlogging again. Start telling these stories. And I'm like, no one cares because it's boring.
Yeah, people will be like, your job is really cool. And I'm like, I work 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Yeah, like I work in an office. I sit at a desk
Literally.
all day.
Literally, I read med school applications all day. It's not that exciting. People will be like, no, we get to do like this, and this. And I'm like, that's what
Yeah,
I got
I'm
my
like,
master's in. I hope I'm using my degree.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm just helping develop a website and it's gonna be launched by the end of the year. And I'm in like the bio section. People are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I'm like,
And you're like, it's
not
whatever.
really.
That's kind of how I
Like, I'm
feel
just,
about writing now. Is I'm like, no, it's just kind of a part of it. And people are like, you published a book. And I'm like, I did?
yeah.
Brie will often say to me, she'll be like, I'm friends with an author. And I'm like, who? And she's like, you're a moron. And I'm like, you're so right, bestie.
I know,
She's like, you're dumb. And I'm like, you're so correct.
I love flaunting that I'm friends with an author. You know how many people I've told about Sign Here, like in my personal life? I'm like, you gotta read this.
My friend's mom actually, if you follow my bookstagram, you saw my post with the like smutty bookmarks, that she gave me, and she told me, she's like, no, Allie, I've been using you for clout. Like I tell Everett that like my son's friend is a published author. Like I use you for clout, and I was like, I love you. She told me this last night when I went over, for Drag Race. She was like, yeah, no, I
That's
use you
so
for clout.
funny.
I was like, I would die for you. You're amazing.
That is
Um,
so funny.
it's so funny because I'm like, I did what? Like, I have copies of my book like all over my apartment. And I'm like, that's not mine. I've never seen that
Yeah,
before. Who is
but I feel
that?
like it's also hard to realize that other people have it. Like,
Oh, it's weird. Every
I
time someone
have a
reminds me that
copy
they
of
own
it.
it, it's so weird to see it in your hands.
Yeah, like I feel like it's so easy to forget like literally other people have this
Oh yeah,
across the
100%.
US. Like
Like my
I'm in Wisconsin with this.
yeah, my coworker's wife read it.
I think
Like
I remember you telling me about that.
it was, oh my god, it's the funniest thing because like she tried to tell him what it was about and he was like, I don't want to know. Like I will not look at Allie the same way ever again. And I was like, thank
Yeah,
you, Stan.
yeah, I feel like that's definitely weird, especially
Oh,
with the context of the book. And you're like, hey, if you know me, you don't know
no,
me.
literally. My one boss actually yesterday, I mentioned something about my book and I totally offhand I didn't mean to say it. And she's like, "You wrote a book?" And I was like, and I
You're
said,
like, don't read it.
I literally went, "If you want to read it, you got to get real cool about a lot of stuff really quickly." And she laughed and I was like, "No, Kelly, I'm not kidding."
You're like, you think I'm joking right now,
I was
but
like,
I'm not.
go read the trigger warning list and tell me you still want to read it." Like,
Yeah, go read that trigger warning list and see if you can look at me the same, knowing that I wrote about that.
my parents saw the trigger warning list and they were like, "Uh?" And I was
You're like,
like,
did we do okay?
no, literally, like, "Hey, we're proud of you, but we're not gonna read it." And I said, "Please don't."
Yeah. Well, even some like I've had my sister read it, like the blurb and like the list, and even she was like, "Oh my gosh, you read this?" I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good."
That's so funny to me.
Okay, but she also is like not a big smut person.
Yeah.
She There was one book that was not at all smutty, and she's like, "That was so spicy and so hot," and I'm like,
That was my mom reading Beach Read. She was like, "It's so smutty," and I went,
maybe that's what it was that she
"Was
read.
it? I'm
It was
dead."
There was just something, or maybe it was like a coho book. 'Cause there's like a little bit of romance, but like
Don't get
not a
me
lot.
started.
But yeah, there's some other books. I'm like,
That's so
hey,
funny.
now read this list of this
I'm
book that I
done.
read.
My
And she
mom
was
said
like,
Beach Read was spicy, and I said, "Okay, you want to read some monster romance next?" And she went, "No." I was like, "I'll give you the first book of Creature Cafe." She said, "Don't you dare."
I don't think I would be right after reading Monster Romance. I have not read any.
Yeah, it changes
Yeah, I
because you're
feel
like,
like,
I could never, but then you start with like demons, which are so like human, um,
mhm.
and then it just progresses, and suddenly you're reading like Kraken romance, and you're like, how did I get here? Like,
I built this up brick by
no,
brick.
literally. Like I just read an arc for Cleo Evans, that was it's called Nocturnal. It's amazing. If you like monster romance, you should read it. But like he's literally we call him Plant Daddy. That's like what we call the monster in this book is we call him Plant Daddy. Because there are vines everywhere.
Okay.
It's Nick, it's a world.
There's been so many like covers or like people posting like reviews on some, and I'm like, ogre
Oh yeah.
or ghost?
The D&D campaign I'm in right now, Haley's like we do romance centered D&D because it's fun. And Haley's partner is going to be an orc. We haven't met him yet. And then Ems is a dragon, which has been so fun. Mine's human. I ended up with
I'm normal.
he's like half human, like half elf. I don't even know. Because
What?
Liz, our DM, has trapped me in a slow burn because she knows how much I hate it. And I'm like, let them kiss. And she's like, no.
Okay, I actually do low key hate a slow burn. I'll read a slow burn if I want to torture myself and like force myself to read through a book really quick. So I'm like, oh, I just want to get to the part where they fuck. And I'm like,
Literally.
gotta go through, and I'll like devour a book just to get
Just
to
to
the
get
point where
to
the
it.
tension is done.
Like, I can't. Which is going to be the problem with this cowboy romance is like, I just wanted I'm literally on chapter 5 and I just want it to escalate. Like, I'm like, but kiss. They literally just met. I'm like this chapter that I just wrote, I'm like, kiss.
Yeah, you're like,
Do
okay, come
it.
on. You met
Like,
5 minutes ago. I think that's enough time.
literally. You just met, and the first thing she said to you was, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, come on. It's time.
But I think that like ties into my actual real life because I hate taking things slow. Like
Oh,
Logan and I, literally, we've been together for just over a year. We have a house together. We got a dog together, and we have spent what during the school year we spent every single weekend together. And within the first month of hanging out, I was like, I want to be exclusive, but I want you to ask me to be your girlfriend. He
I'm
was like, hey,
dead.
we can be exclusive. So we were exclusive for I'd say a month and a half.
That's so funny.
It was like 3 weeks after hanging out. I was like,
I'm
yeah, I don't
dead.
want you seeing anyone else.
I'm dead. That's so good, though. You know what? Rob and I have been together for 8 years, and we just moved in together.
I mean,
We
yeah,
were, I mean, we were long distance for so long because, like, we got together in high school, and then we
yeah,
went to
that's
different
valid.
colleges. So, like, we were long distance, and then I lived in Indiana for a year. Like, we were long distance for so long. We
Yeah, which is
finally moved in together.
very valid excuse. It wasn't just like you both had different apartments in the same town
Yeah.
and like weird like that. Where Logan and I knew I wanted to move back home. He was
Yeah.
getting this house anyways. We are like, might as well just move in. So, and now it's been
Please.
since May. We've been living together and kind of taken over
Amazing.
the house.
As you
I decorate
should.
everything.
As you should.
And I'm like, maybe we should get rid of this so I can get another bookshelf. He's like,
No, literally.
what? No. And I'm like,
Like,
yes.
you're like, please?
You're like, it's better than drugs.
Exactly. I told Rob I might need another bookshelf, and his response was, I was like, please?
Well, Logan, he was like, you don't have enough books to fill up your bookshelves. I'm like, I don't have enough room right now to put all the decorations I want on my bookshelves.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I've
I
had
got
to remove
plants.
decorations because I don't have the space.
Like, it literally does not have to all be books. Like, I just need
Yeah.
another shelf so it like looks cute and aesthetic.
Mine's covered in Taylor Swift CDs because I have all the variants of 1989 and of Tortured Poets. If you couldn't
Oh my
tell,
gosh.
TTPD people in this house. I have a giant framed. I want to make it a gallery wall, but I have no money and I have no time. So I just have this giant framed picture of Taylor on my wall, and it looks like a shrine. It's so funny.
That's hilarious.
Like, you saw some of the
Which is,
pictures I sent you guys last night of the outtakes of, like, she's just in every picture.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The ones I
See,
sent last
what's
night.
so crazy to me is how you are such a big Swiftie and I'm not. So it's so crazy to see the two different dynamics. Where you're like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, like this, and I'm like,
And you're like, I'm so
okay, tell
happy
me.
for you, but I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, like I don't know, have no clue, but as long as you're happy.
I had someone refer to Sign Here as Swifty coded, and I like DM'd them, and I went, "This is the biggest compliment." And they were like, "Well, Ashley's a Swifty," and I was like, "Obviously, she's a Swifty. Like,
Yeah.
she's part me." Actually, I make several references to it in the novella because I can't help myself because I'm a mess. Um, every book I have is going to be a Taylor Swift disaster, and I literally can't help it because it's just a part of who I am.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I think from what in my experience, either you are a diehard Taylor Swift fan or you just aren't in it at all.
Yo.
Like no hate. I love Taylor Swift. I love her
Yeah.
music, but like kudos to you for like being so dedicated. There are times where I'm like, I wish I was that dedicated to some sort of artist, some sort of celeb. Like there are times where I wish that I was just like, oh yeah, like
I
die hard,
can
love them.
I can actually tell you exactly how I became so diehard for Taylor is during the pandemic when like I've always been a big Taylor girl. Like Lover really got me through some stuff. But when Folklore came out, the surprise drop, it was the most like poetic album I'd ever listened to. And it really like getting into and I'm an English girly, English minor, I've always been that way. And so I really got into like analyzing the lyrics and thinking not just about her life, but thinking about like the meanings of it all. And as her albums have progressed, like through Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, Tortured Poets, like everything has become so lyrically deep. And you can listen to the music and not think about that at all, but listening to it and really kind of like dissecting it, and it just shows like I sound like I'm worshiping someone right now, but like it's so in depth and you just like gain this whole other level of respect because you see like she's not just putting like strings of words together. Cuz like you see that a lot of the time in music and you'll be like what does this even mean? But like
Mm-hmm.
her like she's working and that's what really got me into her music is like more than like I had the childhood of being a Swiftie and then the adulthood of being a Swiftie has been very different for me. And that's part of why I
Yeah.
like Tortured Poets so much is A, it was a double album so it's long as hell. Sign Here would not have been published without Tortured Poets, I can tell you that. I've listened to that album straight through every time I'm writing.
Oh my
Every time.
gosh.
Yeah, because it's just like it's such a good mix of songs. I could talk about this all day long. But Tortured Poets is like such a good mix that got me like through it. And then you start picking apart the lyrics and you're like, is she okay? Kind of the same as like me looking at my own book. I'm like, uh oh.
Yeah. Me reading it, I'm like, is Allie okay?
Literally,
Is
there's a
she
reason I
good?
put Taylor Swift in the acknowledgments of that book. It would not have been published without her.
I think I was like good with Taylor Swift, but last football season is when she got really big,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm a football person, and I was getting really frustrated with seeing Taylor on everything. And so there was a point in my life where I was like, I hate Taylor Swift. She is so annoying. She is on everything. But then I looked into it and she was also getting really annoyed with having all this camera time and like
Oh yeah, she
taking away
hated
from the
it.
game. Yeah.
She literally just wanted to like go and support her boyfriend and they just wouldn't leave her alone. And then
Yeah.
like you
Like
do the
every
math on it and she's like displayed for a total of like 30 seconds through the whole game. But because it's all these little snippets, you're like, she's here all the time. She doesn't even want it. That's one
yeah.
of the things I like keep reminded because like my brother got all mad about it, and I was like, number one, get over yourself. Number two,
Yeah.
she doesn't want it either. Like, leave her alone.
Yeah. It was just a point where it was just like Taylor Swift was everywhere.
Yeah,
And it went from me not seeing her on any of my feeds because I don't follow her, I don't really
yeah.
keep updated with what she does, to all of a sudden it was Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey. Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift at the game. Taylor Swift here. Oh, is she gonna make it in time for the game? Like, I was like,
Oh my god, I remember
I
that.
don't care. Like, okay, I guess she's at the games. Good for her. But like, can we focus on the football, please?
I think my favorite part of all of it was like just my favorite part of her and Travis being together is everybody trying to do the flight math of if they're gonna make it to each other's events, and I think it's hysterical because like that's not the kind of diehard that I am. Like I'm diehard because of the music and because of who she is as a person. I've
Mm-hmm.
never been someone who like tries to like deeply theorize about her life because I think that's really weird and parasocial. But
Yeah.
I love watching people analyze the flight plans. I think it's the funniest thing. I'm like, please get over yourself.
Yeah. It was at that point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so sick of seeing it
I can
everywhere.
tell you, it's a small minority of Swifties, but they're so loud and they're so annoying.
Yeah. But I
It's the
mean,
same
it
ones who
died
are like,
down.
Taylor Swift is gay, and I'm like, please stop.
Yeah. But no, that died down, and I also just noticed too. I was like, Taylor Swift does not want to be on camera as much as she already is. Like, you can
Yeah.
tell she was like, I'm just here to
Sh-
watch. I'm just
She's
here to
literally just there.
support.
Yeah.
And it was the NFL who was trying to get more viewership and trying to get the coin off of it. And I was
I've
like,
loved the Taylor Swift effect though of watching all these like little girls now want to watch football with their dads. Like I've
mm-hmm.
loved watching that because I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
then
That
the dads
was
get to like explain football to that. I just think it's very cute.
yeah. That was the one nice thing about it too, though. That it did get more a lot more women and a lot more
Yeah.
younger women
Yeah.
into like younger girls into football and had that
Yeah.
bonding time. I remember
Yeah.
seeing different commercials and ads that
Yeah.
like portrayed that and I was like, "Oh, it's cute." But
It's
also
so
like
cute.
Taylor's as sick of being on camera as
I know. She's like,
everyone is
make it
kind of
stop,
seeing her.
please. I
Yeah.
love seeing the pictures of her like walking into the game though. I'm always like, because she's always slaying the outfit, and I'm just like,
I always love seeing the pictures of her just drinking a beer. She's
it's my
just chilling,
favorite.
just
She is literally, I love the one video of her last year. She was like fully chugging a beer. I was like, that girl's from Pennsylvania.
Though, so
It's
those
literally in her hometown for work like a few weeks ago.
love.
One of my friends from college was babysat by her. Like,
What?
yeah.
That is an insane lore that I would
Oh
probably
my god, it was so
never.
funny. When I met her, we were all like giving fun facts because we were like at a meeting, like freshman year of college. And she was like, yeah, Taylor Swift was my babysitter. And the whole meeting stopped. And everyone looked at her. And we were like, Sarah. And she was like, yeah, what? And we were like,
Like, please
uh.
explain.
And this was the same year that Reputation came out. So, like, after the break. And we were all like, huh? But, like, Sabrina
Like,
Carpenter is also, like, she's from, like, 30 minutes from me. Which is
really?
so cool. Yeah. She's from Quakertown, which is literally, like, 30 minutes. I'm triangulating myself. But, yeah, Sabrina Carpenter's from here. Jonathan Groff is from, like, an hour and a half from me. Like, all these famous... Why do all these famous people come from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, how come no one comes from Wisconsin?
We're such a weird... Pennsylvania's such a weird state. Like, I love it here, but we're so weird.
Yeah, all we have is cows and trees. At
Well,
least
you'll
up
have
north.
me in September for like 3 days next year.
Yeah. How many different book conventions are you now signed up for?
I'm doing 2 in 2025. So they actually haven't announced me yet, but I paid my fees, so I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to Romance Out West in Sandy, Utah in March, which I'm super excited about. Partly because I have a friend who lives in Utah, Ken, who's in our group chat, and I would die for her. And I'm so excited to see her, but like I'm also really excited for my first signing. And then I'm going to Booked Eau Claire in September next year, which I'm really excited about. And
Coming
actually,
to the Midwest.
I know, I'm so excited. You're the only one who could truly get me to return to the Midwest after living in Indiana, Mick. Let's be so for real.
There's really nothing here.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I lived in Lafayette, Indiana for a year because I was working. There's nothing. My apartment was surrounded by cornfields.
it is
I
called
shit you
Mid
not.
for a reason.
I miss Culver's though. I really do.
Oh, I love
I miss Culver's and I
Culver's.
miss Steak and Shake. Those are the only things I miss.
We don't have
And
Steak
the
and Shake up
grocery
here.
prices. It was cheaper out there.
Yeah, we really have nothing up where I am. Because it's so funny. There have been a few people that are like, oh my gosh, like, I've been to Wisconsin. I'm like, where? And they're like, Madison. I'm like,
Yep.
you're still 5 hours away from me. And they're like, really?
Literally.
I'm like, yeah, you're still southern. Like, you are not north yet.
One
They're
of my
like, oh
friends
my
was like, I'm coming to
gosh.
Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh, where? And she's like, Pittsburgh. And I was like, it's 5 hours from me.
Yeah. So it's so funny when I'm like, yeah, I'm like northern Wisconsin. They're like, oh, I've been up there. I've been here. And I'm like, keep going up. Go
That was
up a
why when I
little bit
texted
more.
you about Booked Eau Claire, I was like, how close are you? Because I know the vibes of a big state. I'm like, where are you at, though?
Yeah. No, that one could be easily a drive. Make a night
It
out of
better
it.
be. It better
Yeah.
be. But I'm
I
also waiting to hear about a couple other conventions. Places where you can see me, though, that I'll be there as just a normal person. Monsterotica in Baltimore in May. I will be there just as a normal attendee. But like I have my author name like on my name badge for that, so like if you see me, you'll know me. But I'll be there, and then literally the week after, I'm going to Beachside Book Fest in I think Fort Lauderdale with Bree and Mara because the three of us are sewn together at this point. Um,
yeah.
and so be there for a few days. And also, if anybody happens to be going to the Lila Sage signing at the Rit Bodice in November, I will be there, not as an author, just as a normal human being. But if you're there, I will be there with
So you can
Bree.
fangirl.
Oh my god, yeah. You should have. It's. We go freaking insane when we're together. It's like just completing like this trifecta. And Mara can't come because, she's a teacher. And it's on like a Thursday. And Bree is literally flying in from Florida. We're like, why can't you fly in, Mara? She goes, I am a fifth grade teacher. And we were like, yes, and she was like, shut up.
Like I have a little bit more responsibility.
Because she lived in New York for grad school. So we're like, no, come back.
I don't know. I feel like everyone is always so close to each other,
Yeah.
like distance wise, and I'm just like, hey,
I think
I'm over
the one I'm closest to now is Des, which is so funny because we still haven't met.
Yeah, that's always crazy when you're like, oh my gosh, you're like 20 minutes away from me. I'm like, go drive, go take a
No,
walk and meet
literally.
each other.
No, literally. It's so funny because I've met with the people who live furthest from me the most. Like meeting up with Kat like multiple times at this.
Yeah. No, you guys are always like, oh my gosh, like the weather over here and like
No, literally. And you're
whatever,
like,
different
"Ah."
things. And I look on, find my iPhone. I'm like, hey, like I'll be supporting ya from right over
Over
here. Zoom
here.
out. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I'm trying to think. Well, Contract Christmas comes out December 6th. And it'll be on Kindle. Paperback is TBD. It will be in paperback. But I have to get that set up and figured out. Keep an eye out for the cowboy cowgirl situation. Come see me at book conventions. It'll be super exciting. Sign Here is in paperback on my website. I'm actually getting my next shipment of books, so I will be able to send out more signed copies for people who order from there. It's available on Amazon, Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. So check it out. Follow me, AE boss underscore author on Instagram. You can follow my bookstagram, A.B underscore reads. Pretty active on both of them. If you read the book and you want to talk about it and you liked it, please don't send me mean messages. um, Feel free to DM me. But I think that's kind of it. Mick, thanks for having me. This has been absolutely delightful.
I don't
I'm
know.
so glad
I
that we could
was
do this.
I was so nervous to like plan it, which is why it kind of took a little bit longer to figure out a time. Because I was like, oh, like when I figure out a time, it's real, and then
No,
all
literally.
day I've been
Like when
like,
I put it in my calendar, I was like, "Oh my god, it's real." And Brie was like, "You're recording a podcast?" And then I told my PA today, and she was like, "It's so exciting."
yeah, and I'm just like I'm just a little podcast. It's
What is
basically just
funny because we
us
were like,
talking.
"It's just bestie time. It's just bestie time. We're not going to be stressed about it.
Yeah,
It's fine."
but no, like all day I've been cleaning. You know how like growing up, your mom would be like, "You gotta clean your bedroom. We have guests coming over." I
Yeah.
was cleaning the bathrooms. I was doing the dishes. Like I was doing
You were
everything,
prepared.
thinking that like, oh, like we're gonna do this today. I gotta make sure the whole house is clean for it. Like
I have so much
for
random
what?
stuff on my bookshelf, and I have no idea how much my camera is ever actually gonna like zoom out. So of course, instead of getting like my special edition LC Silver books, you get my grad school binder. But like I was like cleaning the apartment, they're like the bookshelves off, and I was like, it's gotta be perfect. It's gotta be perfect. I said the perfect background.
Yep. No, that has been me all day today, leading up
When
to
I'm
this.
interviewing med school applicants, this cycle now that I've had all my book backgrounds, I've had so many people ask me for book recommendations.
That's
Because they're like,
funny.
I see you're a reader. And the one girl actually emailed me a thank you note. It'd be so funny if she ever listened to this. And she was like, I want you to know that as soon as we got off the interview, I went and I ordered Flawless. And I was like, I would die for you if I mentioned that.
you you look like you're a reader. You think?
Am I? I don't know.
How could you tell?
How did you know I had 3 copies of Love Redesigned?
Yeah, how'd you know I have 10 different versions of the same book?
Literally. Me and my special edition addiction that I have.
I know, I always see like your bookshelves. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have like 4 copies of Powerless.
She has a
And
problem.
speaking of Powerless, you need to read
I know I need to read Reckless.
Reckless.
I know.
You
I'm
need
just
to.
afraid.
It's I don't know. I don't want to say anything
Oh god.
because like I feel like it's not as bad because you're like I'm so scared. So I went into it a little bit spooked, but
I just
it is
like
crazy.
Kai Azer does something to me, and I hate that this is a YA book because that man.
No.
I just like I would love, and I actually was thinking about this the other day. For something that I want to work on because I am working on fantasy takes so much work. Like let's talk about that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it, and I was like, I could absolutely write a spice-free fantasy book, and also write a spicy version. Like I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, I could do that.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
because then people can read whichever one they want,
Yeah,
and
you
you
would
won't
be
lose any of the story. You just gain a little more if you get the spicy version.
yeah, you'd be able to be open to a more
Oh
broad
yeah,
group. Like
me as a
people who
YA
like
author is the funniest thing I've ever considered.
Yeah, that is kind of funny to think about after
Like just
reading
the and
Sign
like the
Here.
person that I am, like just thinking about me as like a YA author, like going and signing at elementary schools would be the funniest thing on earth. The people are like, what else have you written? I'm like, you don't need to know.
Those are not YA. Those
Those are not
are not
don't.
me.
Once you're 18, then we can talk.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't reading like smut on fanfiction.net at age 12, but like
I remember reading some stuff on Wattpad growing up.
oh my god.
Ah, crazy.
You never knew what you were gonna find. There's
No.
I'm gonna expose myself here briefly. I had a YouTube phase and I'm still in my YouTube phase. Some of the Dan and Phil fan fiction out there, good god.
I know. I heard about that. I never read any of them,
Oh, I
but
read them.
I heard about those. Insane.
I was traumatized. Like I still am traumatized by them. And knowing that they know about them makes it even more upsetting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like they brought it up in a video recently and I was like, I'm so sorry that you guys know about that.
Yeah,
I've
after
actually
all this
seen them
time
live in
still.
November. I'm such a trash bag. I'm 25 and I'm seeing Dan and Phil live again for the second time in my life.
I mean, as you should.
I saw the Try Guys on Thursday night.
I saw that.
It was delightful. And they brought out Gritty, which if y'all don't know Philly, he's our hockey team's mascot, and he's insane looking. Um, and they brought him out, and he was like throwing cakes at them. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, "Am I on acid?"
I wish we had cool people come here. But again, I'm like basically Canada.
I was gonna say, are
So
you like literally Canada?
I am from my location right now, I am probably 3 hours away from Canada.
That's
From the
crazy.
border. Where I went to school, I was 2 hours away.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Like my roommate and I took a day trip up to the border and back one time. Like when
That's
we were in
crazy.
college, we skipped class. We're like, yeah, let's just go drive north.
That's honestly that's so college, isn't it?
Yeah, I loved it. Part of me
So
misses it
funny.
so much.
I miss college. I really do.
I miss being able to use it as an excuse of like, I'm just a college kid. I'm poor. When I was like, I'm an adult. I just am a poor person
Now I'm just poor.
without a fun little silly excuse. I'm just poor with bad
I
decisions
don't
and
have an
money
excuse
skills.
anymore.
No, it's all my own fault.
No, literally. Me and my multiple book copies. Now it's my own fault.
Okay, I think we'll wrap up the episode here.
I
I'll
think it's a
put
good time.
all of your links and everything in the descriptions for these episodes.
Amazing.
Um, the episodes will be available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for the video version. Might start expanding to other platforms because personally, I'm always like, who listens to Spotify or who listens to podcasts on something other than Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube? But I guess a lot of people do. So
Fascinating.
probably should probably start doing that because yeah, there's like so many other like
There's
you can
so
get it
many
on
platforms out there.
yeah like iHeartRadio I think you can get
Yeah, they do
on
podcasts.
and yeah there's like a bunch of random like who uses these
But I guess it's
boomers.
somebody. I think it's because when podcasts like started, it was so random to like find them. And now like everybody and their mother has a podcast.
Yeah, which is true.
Very true.
Okay,
All right.
that's gonna be it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hearing everything AE Boss has had to say about books, about Sign Here, about whatever bookish things we talked about. I don't even know at this point. There's been so much. Um, Stay tuned for more releases. I'm very excited to personally read them. I literally think about everyone from Sign Here probably once a day. So
And that's so
that
valid of you.
if that tells you anything about coming from a person who has never read dark romance until this, and now I'm like obsessed with them, and I will continue thinking about them probably until I die.
I hope you do, because then I won't be alone.
And then I don't know. I always feel so awkward ending my episodes. I'm just like, I'll
So fair.
I'll talk to you guys next week, I guess, about whatever Whatever I want to talk about.
Whatever comes to mind.
Whatever is falling out of my mouth next week is what we will talk about.
Amazing.
Okay. Bye.